Gary Kubiak told us that Mitch Tanney, who is the Broncos Director of Analytics, is going to help him, Gary, with in-game decisions. He will be on the headset helping Gary do some play calling here and there. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Chris, this hit us as kind of odd. We've never heard this before. I don't know if it's ever happened before. But how do you think Mitch Tanney, the Broncos Director of Analytics, will be involved? What in-game decisions could he help with?
Well, I think most prominently in fourth and short situations, not just at the goal line, but on midfield when you're trying to decide whether to punt or whether to go for it. I think that Director of Analytics will have that information kind of as a risk-reward ratio to tell you why it makes sense to go for it or why it might make sense to punt. And it's a situation, I think, ever since early last decade when the Moneyball phenomenon hit baseball, people have been wondering how analytics would help football. And it can't help in the same statistical ways because football players, analytic experts will not be in meetings with coaches and players to know what the assignments are. You really can't extract statistics from a football game and take it away from the other 22 players on the field. But in this way, situationally, short yardage, whether to go for it or not, I think will be a huge impact where analytics come in.
Chris is joining us, and as Les mentioned, Chris, this is what I think Chris is on the second best program nationally that has the word "around the" in its title. Would that be fair, Chris? I actually think yours is better than mine. Around the NFL. It's a great show, and you guys do a fantastic job on there. Les said he was, what was the term you used? I thought this was brilliant. My reaction to it is brilliant, that you could actually bring in somebody that will say to you, okay, 2-point conversion here. This is X and this play works. I mean, you're talking about analytics, but if I got, Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, I thought maybe the analytical expert would examine defenses like the coaches do and go, here's the defense they're in a situation that is a 4th and 1 or on a 2-point conversion. But you seem to think, I'm getting from you that it's going to be more general kind of analytics than specific. Is that true?
I would be surprised if an NFL head coach put enough faith in a math guy to read a defense. I wouldn't see it as that advanced. I wouldn't see the analytics guy being that empowered. I think it would be straight, studies and numbers. I would not expect it to be translating what the analytics guy is seeing on the field. That would surprise me.
Well, let me give you one. Mike Shanahan and I talked years ago. They were playing in San Diego, the Broncos were, and they tried a field goal. And it was unsuccessful. And I wrote afterward, and Mike actually came to me, first time I ever heard him say that, and he said, you're absolutely right. We should not have kicked that field goal in that situation because we were kicking it off the brown dirt of the Padres field. Will we see things of that sort enter into the analytical discussion that Kubiak will be having with this guy that, oh, this field is with the wind blowing 17 miles an hour, in this field, swirling winds in New York, I've always heard. Are we going to go down that route, Chris?
I don't want to say with authority, but I suspect that you're right, that things like this stadium, kickers have performed this well in this stadium. We know that Heinz Field has been infamous for being a bad kicker's field. So I think you'll see probably, if it's an over 50-yard field goal, studies will show don't kick it, that kind of stuff. And I think you're right also that weather will be factored involved, that if winds are, let's say above 10 miles an hour, do you kick it from this distance on this hash mark? I think those things will be. I'm not sure that the Broncos will have that specifically, but I think we'll see that in the future, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I wondered if this couldn't open the gates to really having, if Moneyball really did change. Everybody has their own, I think you'd agree with this, Chris, everybody has their own interpretation in baseball of analytics, that they don't necessarily agree with what the Oakland A's are doing. The Red Sox did their own. That I think that we could see the advent here in the National Football League, or even in what I thought about when this story came up is if I'm a manager in baseball, that I might have a guy on a headset who's somewhere in a locker room saying, this guy's batting 277, that actually you would have to be looking at sheets of paper all the time, that it would be instantaneous. And that's what I'm kind of getting out of this, Chris, in regard to the NFL and what the Broncos are going to do.
Well, yeah, and let me preface this, Chris, by saying I'm a big believer in analytics, but I think there needs to be a happy medium. We had a situation here where the Broncos played the Baltimore Ravens in a playoff game in 2012, and John Fox went the very conservative route. There are times, when, yes, it's okay to rely on analytics. They do tell a story, but there are other times, doesn't a coach have to say, Gary Kubiak has to say to himself, you know what, I've got Peyton Manning and Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas on the field. It's 3rd and 7, and I don't care what the analytics say. I need to go for it here. I've got pretty good players.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. There has to be a happy medium. There's a human element involved, and analytics have not been able to. Actually, analytics kind of scoff at the notion of a gut feeling. But gut feelings are nothing more than honed instincts from gathering data, from gathering anecdotal evidence, scientific data. I think that coaches have to make those calls themselves, but they're armed with that information from analytics. And I honestly think that a lot of NFL teams are already doing this. Most of them have analytics departments. I think that the coaches are all steeped in this information before the game starts. I guess the difference would be access to the headphone during the game.
Yeah, let me take you guys off course, which is what I'm prone to do. But there's a coach in high school in Arkansas that always onside kicks, always goes for 2, always goes on 4th down. And his analytics have shown him that if you go for 4th down. So, Chris, I'm asking you, and Les, if you want to chime in, do you see football ever heading that direction, since we're seeing the rule changes with the 2-point conversion now, that where Chip Kelly goes for it on every touchdown that he scores because of the way the analytics work out, or that teams might decide that, gee, we're not going for it enough on 4th down, that we should be going for it in our own territory? Is analytics going to change that?
I think the major difference between that high school coach and NFL is the quality of play, and that some weeks you're going to be playing in high school a team that's just 10 or 12 times better than you, and you're totally outclassed. You have to come up with gimmicks to win. In the NFL, I think it's so evenly matched that you can't do that. But I do think that NFL coaches will get the religion that it pays to go for it on 4th down more than they do. I think that's what's coming soon.
Hey, Chris, tell us about the show, the podcast, Around the NFL.
Well, it's just 4 of us guys who work out here at NFL.com, where we have the Around the NFL blog, which covers news from around the league, and we do a lot of analysis. And we do the podcast 3 days a week. It's just 4 idiots. We hang out together outside of work, so I think that comes through organically, that we're just ripping on each other and going over sports. And I think even with the fun, we still have the analysis, too. So I think it's a good mix of all of that.
Yeah.
And iTunes, we find it on iTunes?
Absolutely. You can find it at iTunes, Around the NFL podcast.
All right. Hey, Chris.
I think there should be more shows that go around the something. Around
the block.
Around the barbecue pit. But you guys are doing a great job, Chris. I think you've taken what we're doing and taken it a step farther, because you actually are friends with the guys you work with, and that's never been the case for me.
Well, thank you for that great review. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Chris, thanks for your time, man. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, anytime.
Chris Wesseling, he writes for NFL.com, and check out the podcast Around the NFL. That segment sponsored by the Lake Street Tavern. They've got 3 bars under one roof. They also have the Underground Social. They've got 24,000 square feet there. They also have 60 HD TVs. It's located just a couple of blocks north of Coors Field. It is Denver's best sports bar with Denver's best sports bar food.